You- Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us today for the first of our three-part webinar series. You know, as we work in the marketplace, these three topics continue to be brought up by both existing customers and prospects. The disjointed tracking model that we have to use in intermodal, how we can meet their sustainability initiatives and requirements, and how we are deploying alternative fuels are all prevalent with logistics professionals today. Some are executing their existing plans while others are just starting this journey. So our goal with this webinar series is to provide valuable information to our clients and prospects as these three topics become more a priority in their professional lives. We begin that journey today with the first of our three, tracking and visibility, by showcasing our partnership with Gnosis Freight. Next, we'll be hosting a leading sustainability and emissions consultant on March the 12th to discuss both current and upcoming regulations impacting sustainability. And then we'll follow that up with a global fuel solutions provider on May the 14th to discuss renewable diesel and the positive effects it can have on the transportation industry. I also want to make sure you know that in addition to the live events, each of these sessions will be available within a few days following on the sustainability page of our website, which can be found at www.tcwonline.com. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce my friend and our guest speaker and subject matter expert for today, Jake Hoffman. Jake is the Chief Technology Officer of Gnosis Freight, a logistics tech company focused on the life cycle of a shipping container as it moves around the world. He has led the engineering team since the company's inception in 2017, bringing a deep understanding of technology and trends in the industry to bear in driving the company's technical strategy. We work directly with Jake in forming and executing the partnership between Gnosis Freight and TCW, providing all visibility and tracking internally in one pane of glass to our operations team, as well as launching now TCW's client portal, which is powered by Gnosis. This will allow clients who choose to subscribe the same value of being able to track their cargo while on the water, at port, or in TCW's possession, all in one place. Jake, welcome, and I appreciate you taking time to share with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Gary. That was a great introduction. That's much better than I would have done, so I appreciate it.
You can thank Adam for that.
There we go. All right. Yeah, happy to be here. And guys, as Gary said, I've been working directly with the guys at TCW on executing this partnership and getting all the data flowing and everything in between. So excited to talk with everybody today, and excited to be here with Gary.
So, you know, the first question we had to answer is an intermodal drayage provider responsible for ground transportation only is why pursue a tracking and visibility provider? And there's both internal and external value to this for us. First, we did some analysis and we determined that our operations team is spending 200 plus hours per month on manual tracking tasks, uploading spreadsheets to multiple sites, downloading those spreadsheets, and then pulling all that information into one source, into one data source, and then having to make decisions with it. The fragmenting tracking from marine to port to rail and even our own movement was making it very difficult. Clients also struggled to stay ahead of cargo and reduce demurrage and per diem cost. So the motivation for us was pretty simple. It boosted our own productivity and streamlined our planning, but we also wanted to provide unified tracking for both internal teams and our clients. Now, let's get into why TCW chose Gnosis Freight as that trusted partner. So a year ago, I was having dinner with Pieter Potgatter of Hubble Lighting while at a conference, and we were discussing this exact topic over dinner. Pieter's a big outdoorsman, travels all over the world fly fishing in some of the best fishing environments. So it was not lost on me when he said this to me, and I quote, "There's only three things I vouch for in life: Sims waders, Scott fly rods, and Gnosis Freight." We immediately added Gnosis to our consideration, and Pieter introduced us to Jake the following day. We did extensive vetting of several platforms, and it was apparent to both our VP of Information Services and to me that Gnosis was the best partner for TCW. Their original sourcing of the data, how it would be conveyed to our team and our systems, and the flexibility of providing us what we needed in the format we required was the best option of all the platforms we vetted. We also wanted to provide our clients a way to solve their visibility and tracking issues, yet in a manner that ensured them they were receiving the most accurate data possible. Gnosis has also worked closely with our team to develop a client-specific portal that does just that, and also allows for communications with the TCW team regarding specific containers directly through the portal. I want to make one thing clear. While the portal has our logo on it, make no mistake, it is powered by Gnosis. So we want to dive in a little bit of the details now that brought us to this decision and how the platform works. So, Jake, I mentioned the original sourcing. Can you share with us how Gnosis sourcing of data is unique and how this best serves your clients?
Sure. Thanks, Gary. First of all, appreciate all the kind words and the story of Peter and the Scott's, the fly rods and the waders and everything. That's great that we get to say that. Appreciate that, Peter, if you're listening. From a data differentiation perspective and what Gary has talked through, we have this slide up here talking about all the different places that Gnosis pulls data from and how we aggregate that and put it all into one source of truth. And so anybody that has moved an international container or tried to track an international container, any of those kind of things, know that there's all these different data sources that you could go to figure out where it is. The ocean carrier is kind of the person that puts everything together. They have the entire plan of, hey, this container is getting on a vessel in Shanghai, and then it's coming to Charleston, and then it's getting on the rail and going to Greer or Memphis or wherever inland that might be. There's all these different modes in between. And so what you can do is you can just take the data that's already been aggregated at the ocean carrier level. And so that's one of the sources that we pull data from is the ocean carrier themselves. But then we also go to all of the actual sources. And what I mean by sources, the facilities. So for example, a container terminal. So in the example I gave of a container coming from Shanghai to Charleston, we go directly to the Charleston terminal to get information like a discharge date or availability at that terminal or some of the gate transaction data and things like that. We pulled data from 7 primary sources. So the ocean carriers and the terminals we already talked about. Also rail carriers at the top. So the class 1 railroads we have direct integrations with. Air carriers, if you're doing air freight, we go directly to the air carriers and tracked by that airway bill. U.S. Customs. U.S. Customs, we are actually an ABI vendor. There's only so many software companies that are approved ABI vendors in the country to actually transact EDI messages with U.S. Customs. And we do that. We did it originally for filing ISF purposes, but then we found that we can use that as a source of data to aggregate, like, is this bill of lading for an ocean container? Is it cleared customs? Has the ISF been filed? And a lot of those other kind of data points there. At the bottom, we have two more. The AIS satellite I'll hit first, and that's You're the satellite circling the globe and getting pings from all the vessels to give that location information, as well as the next destination of the vessel, the speed it's traveling at, and all those kind of things. And then last but not least, drayage partners. And I think that's important for us to make a distinction here where a drayage partner, specifically somebody like a TCW that we're talking about today, is both a partner of ours that is a customer where we can provide them value and bringing them container information, but also a partner on the other side where they are a data source for us. As soon as a container outgates from a port or from a rail terminal and TCW takes control of that container, we lose visibility unless for that partnership. We get the outgate and the empty return, but we have nothing in between. And that's where this partnership means a whole lot. And we'll show you examples of what that looks like in a little bit, to where we can get that full end-to-end to delivery, breadcrumbs and all the above on doing this with somebody like TCW. We take in all these data sources, and instead of just regurgitating it, there's a whole lot of behind the scenes logic that happens. It's, which data source is more accurate at this point in the journey? Is a discharge date more accurate coming from the terminal itself or coming from the ocean carrier? And there's all this logic behind the scenes of where to pull data from, which one's more accurate. And we do all that and then show it to our customers literally in just like one Excel row is how you can think of it. Is this container started in Shanghai and is going all the way to Memphis or wherever it's going inland? And here's all the days that happened in between.
Great. Thank you for that explanation. Historically, Gnosis has served predominantly the BCO clients, handling primarily imports. So you spoke to the data, but what value does the partnership with TCW or other draymen bring Gnosis?
That's right. And I talked about the data a little bit. So obviously the piece that's the how it's historically been done is when somebody like us, like a Gnosis, goes to a BCO and says, "Hey, we want to be your visibility platform." The way that we do everything up to an outgate or up to that coordination at the latch layer, because really there's a coordination before the outgate even happens. It's been, hey, we can do all these things, and then we need everybody that your carriers are to send us EDI messages with all those relevant pieces of information. We do that, and we do that on behalf of our BCOs. We go to their drayage partners, their freight forwarders, whoever is coordinating that drayage and then actually executing that drayage like at the end. But we wanted to do something a little bit different where instead of me just coming to you and saying, hey, send us EDI 214s, we had a kind of a value add, a way that we could say, hey, we're bringing value to the BCO by giving them fantastic data and allowing them to plan. There is something for your operations team here too, where we can show you guys, hey, we can tell you the last free day. We can tell you when this container is available and do those things to kind of bring you value and not just try to get you to give us the information about what's being delivered. And so that's where it really develops this interesting dynamic where we can kind of try to be that digital partner for both a drayage party like you guys and then the BCOs that have always been our customers to just enhance that coordination layer. And so when we have large BCOs that come to us for that drayage management and execution piece, where they're trying to say, hey, I have 500 containers coming in. I need to tell TCW what containers they are, when they're going to be at the port so that they can go pick those up. We can also be that digital layer to send the orders directly to you guys. And then in being already a partner with TCW, that bilateral data integration already happens. And so we get the breadcrumbs and the milestones for delivery back from you guys. We get to show that to the BCO, and then the BCO gets the value that we don't have to go through all these long, tedious EDI integrations for every single carrier that gets onboarded. There's already that kind of pre-existing full digital footprint of that partnership and that full end-to-end container journey.
Right. Thank you, Jake. Now I want to speak to how this Gnosis partnership brings value to you, our clients. First, you get the value of the same simplified tracking that I mentioned for our operations. Most of our BCOs aren't exclusive with one marine carrier or one routing. They're using multiple carriers, they're using multiple routings. So those same hours that our operations team is investing in pulling data, a lot of our clients are having to do the same. So what this allows, it allows it all to be consolidated into one pane of glass, saving time and improving supply chain visibility. Next, it greatly increases our ability to improve collaboration. We can easily manage priority boxes, delivery dates, empty container status by us pushing our data into there as well. You'll be able to use it as a yard management, knowing what's in your pool, knowing what is, and being able to transmit empty data to our operations team. Finally, is actionable insights. I talk to my team all the time about, let's not get caught up in data for the sake of data. Let's get caught up in data that we can take action on and find efficiencies in. The data we're able to pull out of this allows us to work with our clients and our clients to work with us to find those efficiencies. It may have to do with a consistent route, a route that's consistently running late. It may have to do with transit time. It may have to do with time on property. But we'll be able to have all that data on the backside now where we can analyze it and work with it to find those improvements and those efficiency gains. All right, so this is a slide that is really unique, but this is part of what excites me about telling you powered by Gnosis. So for our customers who choose to subscribe to the portal, here's the data flow. So it'll start with you, the BCO, the NVO. You'll send the DO to us, and that's all. That's it. Our system immediately transmits that data, container number, and master bill of lading number to Gnosis. And then here's the unique part that I really, really like, is that you and we both have access to that data real time simultaneously. So for our clients who send us their DOs, when the container is departing origin, Asia, Europe, wherever it may be, you'll have full ocean visibility of that cargo. For those who are getting a little closer to port, then you'll have visibility the remaining time on ocean through the discharge process, and then once we outgate the box. So, but to me, these two arrows coming from Gnosis back to us simultaneously is the beauty of this partnership. Now, Jake, we've partnered with you for tracking data. Yet Gnosis brings a much more robust container lifecycle management product to market. Can you briefly speak to the total product available through Gnosis?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, this full slide here, if you draw a line vertically down the middle, the left side is what we kind of already talked about, right? Is the data piece. And this entire slide kind of is an overarching description of the Gnosis Freight business. The data being on the left side, and then all the execution modules and the software itself being on the right side. On the right-hand side, the top, being CLM, that's essentially, it's kind of a version of what you guys have. It's that customer portal, that software on top of the data. That's visibility. That is, raising demurrage and detention alarms whenever containers are in danger of incurring those fees. A global map, you mentioned the ocean visibility from origin all the way to destination. So showing a little red blinking dot exactly where your container is in the world. And those are the kind of things that are all available in that CLM package, and you can think of that as the visibility piece. As you go down the right side, you have CLM Plus there, and then the enhancements. Think of it as getting more complex and more execution focused. The CLM Plus piece is, think of that as I care about where the container is, but really I care about what's inside the container. I may, care about container TCKU 1234 and what the ETA is, but really I care about my product that's inside of that container, and I want to know when that's going to be in my warehouse so that I can fulfill an order on the inbound side. And that's achieved through a bidirectional ERP integration, sometimes through the integration with packing lists and commercial invoices and all that kind of information to show that down to an item level and get that item level visibility. Going down further to the enhancement piece, I'll hit on two main ones, although you can see there's a bunch of different buckets of different things here that Gnosis does in the enhancements region. The FinOps module, so talking through anything on the financial parallel to physically moving a container. So that has to do with invoice auditing, remittance, and AP management. As a BCO in the space that is utilizing vendors from all different parts of the world and different regions and everything else for booking freight, moving freight with people like TCW, moving it with different ocean carriers, then also possibly incurring demurrage or per diem or any of those things, it's extremely difficult to keep up with all the different contracts and the agreements that were originally signed. And so Gnosis does a really good job of marrying that live visibility data and all the information we're aggregating that's on the left side of this slide, all that information we're aggregating with places to that contract of what was originally agreed to. Hey, we agreed that if a container gets it to the port of Charleston, it has 4 working days, and we know that the terminal was closed on Saturday and Sunday, and then Monday because of a holiday, so we shouldn't be charged to merge. And so we're auditing those kind of fees and things in real time. Um, in that enhancements module piece, the second down on the right, that drayage management, that's what I've already alluded to a few times, where the partnership with somebody like TCW comes in handy and is really realized. So the drayage management piece from a BCO's perspective is hey, I have 500 containers coming in, and I need to send a DO, a delivery order to TCW, to any other drayage carrier to like give that responsibility, convey the responsibility of, hey, you're responsible for picking up this container, and do that in an optimal way. We have, to your point about your customers using different ocean carriers, different freight forwarders and things. Sometimes BCOs want to use a couple of different drayage carriers. Maybe they have a broker, a freight forwarder, whoever it is that's helping them to manage that drayage. And that actual conveyance, especially if it's a large amount of volume, that conveyance of responsibility, that delivery order being sent in an optimal way in plenty of time so that the partner has time to plan, make appointments at the terminal if necessary, make sure they have trucks available, and so on. Doing that in an organized way is something that Gnosis helps with. And then as a part of that drayage piece, not only sending the delivery orders, but then getting the visibility back. And so we have that bilateral data connection with you guys, that we can send the DO and then also get that visibility back on the breadcrumbs and the delivery timestamps and the everything else of how a container is actually being delivered to the final destination. And so that's where we aggregate all the information and do it in an optimal way to help, manage that destination piece in its entirety for BCOs. Those are just a
Right.
couple of examples. There's, like I said, there's a ton on that page, but those are some really primary examples of how people use Gnosis today.
Well, great. Now I'd like to kind of dive into the portal briefly, and share some screenshots of this. And I want to ask Jake to speak to the first two. So Jake, what are we looking at here?
Sure. So this is a really cookie cutter dashboard. That's when you log into Gnosis for the first time, and it's, everything broken out by different statuses and it's things that require attention, anything that you want to look at. And so each of these at the top is what we call a card, which will be containers that fall into any of those specific categories. And so you see we have the top, the second one over, discharged today. These are the containers that have been discharged at the port of destination today. So anything that's happening live, like, hey, this was discharged, the crane picked it off a boat and put it at the ocean terminal, and you can see those. And each of these is clickable. So it has 18, you click in, and it pops up a grid of those 18 containers. Something immediately here, like I said, that requires action or you should look at: risk of demurrage. This doesn't mean that you have 446 containers currently in demurrage. It means that there's 446 that fit the criteria where that is coming up soon or is currently happening. And so when you guys are moving a lot of volume like TCW does, you have 446 containers that once you click into it, it's sorted by importance. And so the ones where the last free day is the soonest, or in the past, in the worst cases, that it'll show you is like, hey, according to all of our data sources and everything that we're gathering data from, these are the containers that have either discharged at the ocean terminal, if there is not a rail component to that final leg, or discharge at the rail terminal, if it's going inland to a Nashville or Memphis or wherever it is, and that have not been picked up by a TCW truck. And so that's what's showing you those containers that are in danger of collecting those fees. And then detention or per diem, the same kind of thing. There's a really specific filtering of the containers that have outgated according to the ocean carrier, the terminal, the rail carrier, et cetera, that have not been empty returned and are in danger of reaching their per diem agreements. So that we can make sure that we're showing you like, hey, this is what is going to cost you money. And so you can immediately on the homepage click into any of these things and see that. I mentioned when I started talking about this is a cookie cutter version. This is what you get when you open it up for the first time. The Gnosis solutions engineers that work on your account can remove, change, do any of these kind of things. They have kind of a builder view where they can take, if you don't care about how many containers departed origin today, that top left card, they can remove that and they can make it how many containers are in Charleston right now to discharge not outgated. Whatever that kind of custom filtering that you're used to in an Excel where you type in a filter like, hey, this is blank, this is not blank. The Gnosis engineers do that almost in real time and kind of configure this dashboard to show the things that you care about as a user.
I do want to put a disclaimer on this slide here, and the fact, and it's across those four bottom boxes,
That's
is
right.
that one of the strengths that Gnosis has is we can provide them your contract data as it relates to demurrage and detention, and we're just starting that process. So I was talking with our IT group about that yesterday.
That's an important distinction. That's right, Gary. So what we'll do when we don't have any of the individual custom negotiated contract terms for detention per diem, for example, is we have all the default tariffs. And so, if one of the ocean carriers has 4 working days for anybody that moves a container when it goes off port, that's what we'll use to calculate until we get the distinction of, hey, this is X customer's container, they actually have 14 days, and then it'll immediately recalculate. So it definitely wouldn't say $160,000 here, right? It'd be something much lower than that.
That's right. All right, next is Jake's mentioned the global map. So Jake, talk us through this a little bit.
Sure. So this global map is a good marrying point of that AIS satellite data. So like the satellites that are getting pings from the ships all the time, and your individual containers. And so Gary's screenshot here is showing he's clicked in on this CMA CGM T Roosevelt, the Theodore Roosevelt vessel, and it shows that you have all these containers on the right side. You can see some of them are destined for Savannah and some are destined for Charleston. So I'm clicking into this vessel, and it looks like I have 8 containers that are getting off in Savannah, and then after that, the vessel is going to go on to Charleston, and there's 4 at the bottom that are going to Charleston. All the AIS information is at the top, showing the vessel's IMO number, the MMSI number, according to the satellite information. Here's the ETA to Savannah, and so on. And then there is a little that raw AIS satellite data is where you could click in and see the status according to the satellite, like underway using engine or once it's moored or any of those kind of things, the speed it's traveling at, and all that information. And so it's a good way of kind of aggregating, like, hey, I see this giant ship off the coast, but how does that impact me? And you can zero in on any individual vessel and see your shipments, your containers on there. And then each of the individual containers, like on this showing the 8 that are discharging in Charleston, you can click into that and it'll pull up all the details about that container, your information about it, which warehouse it's going to, any of the POs and line items, and so on. That's all there. So it's kind of like your own version of a global map of a satellite provider or anything, but it only shows you the stuff that you care about. So any of the other satellite providers would be like, hey, here's a map of all the vessels. This is your version of that only shows the vessels that you care about with your information and what's on there.
Great, thank you. Then I want to speak to our data push into Gnosis. So once we outget that box, then we provide breadcrumbs, lat long breadcrumbs, as the cargo moves behind our truck across the network. This is Jake mentioned you can click into a certain container. This is the detail screen you'll see, and you'll notice the milestones that are starting to show there. Unfortunately, being a screenshot, I can't scroll down and show all of them to you, but you do see the breadcrumbs where the truck is moving it from Charleston to Columbia and then on across so far to Atlanta. These breadcrumbs are moving very frequently. We generally transmit them to the system every 5 minutes if there is a change from the last 5 minute pull off of our satellite system. So if you're looking, say you have a priority container hotter than the others coming to you, and you want to drill down exactly where it is while it's in our possession, once it's outgated, then this is the visibility you'd be able to have that, the location you'd be able to have that visibility. All right, now we have Brianna ready to throw any questions our way. So what questions do you have based on the data you've seen so far?
Gary, I was thinking, and while we're waiting on Bree to get back to us with questions, something that we've done in the past that we can look at working on is like utilizing that breadcrumb data and the destinations being
Mhm.
delivered to continue to make that ETA better, right? When you get super
Right,
great there. And that's stuff that we've worked on in the past, and we can talk about how we can implement that with you guys.
absolutely.
For those that are attending, if you want to ask a question, you are more than welcome to also raise your hand. I do have a question right now I do have a question and it says, do you have any information on exports, i.e. changing cut dates?
Sure. Yeah. So for us and Gary, we talked about this. So for exports on from a booking being made and understanding ERDs and cuts both at an inland point and at a terminal,
Mhm.
Gnosis tracking by the booking number itself will tell you what vessel it's supposed to be on according to the ocean carrier, and then use the terminal information to look at the port schedule. Oh, hey, this vessel is berthing in a week and the empty receiving window, starts, there's an ERD and then a cut date, and we organize all that information at the booking level and show it to customers in real time. And so for the TCW team, this is helpful for them as they're planning, hey, when do we pick up a container and deliver it to the port? How does that operationally change as stuff changes, as vessels move and rail schedules move and so on. And so there's value in the operation side, but also in the visibility on the export side.
Thank you, Jake. I have another question and it says, is this information compiled from the same public information available at carrier websites?
So it is. Some of them are, right? I think it's a lot of the information that we have directly from ocean carriers and terminals and rail carriers. Some of it is if you go on a website and you type in an individual container number and get it, it does mirror that. A lot of it is through private API connections that we've developed with carriers and terminals and so on over the years. So the answer in short is like some of it's public information, some of it's not. The kind of the secret sauce and how it all comes together is how we aggregate all that information from those different places. And so getting an example we always use is like the actual vessel arrival is we can use the vessel arrival that you get from an ocean carrier. It's like, hey, the vessel arrived, but that might be the vessel's anchored off the coast of New York and it actually doesn't get a berthing for 2 days. We use the satellite information of when it actually pulls up to the dock and change that navigation status to moored. And so there's enrichment that comes from all these different places where just the entire Gnosis source of data is not available anywhere besides Gnosis, but bits and pieces are available publicly. Yes.
Our next question is if this platform is accessible today to TCW clients.
It will be accessible within a week. We do have a pilot client that is going to be handed their login today. That's going to help us with a couple of last organizational things. We've already had a review of it with them, and they're biting at the bits. So contact your sales manager, and we can get this set up for you quickly.
Next, is there a cost for the platform?
We do have a cost involved in this, and your sales manager will gladly discuss that with you.
Thank you, Gary. And our last question we have is, how does this system integrate with CargoWise?
Yeah, from the Gnosis perspective, we have many customers that use CargoWise in one form or another. There's kind of two ways is we have shipper BCO customers that have maybe one of their providers uses CargoWise. So a freight forwarder uses CargoWise that is making a booking for a BCO. We get the initial shipment data. And so Gary mentioned a long time ago, the container and the MBL, the master bill of lading is what we need to track something, and we don't need anything else. So it's not like we're pulling EDI 315 container status events out of CargoWise. We're doing all that ourselves. And so just getting that initial shipment information on behalf of a BCO from a freight forwarder, somebody using CargoWise is one way. The other way is to feed information back into CargoWise. And so, how their system works and getting the EDI messages from all the ocean carriers, they're integrated and everything else. There are some additional pieces of information that Gnosis does that can enrich that data, provide some more detail and some of those kind of things. And so putting information back into CargoWise through their integration methods is absolutely something we've done in the past as well.
So we do have some extra questions that are in our chat. Someone was wondering if this works on mobile devices, iPads, etc.
I can speak to that. I think we've of course talked about, do we make this like a mobile app or do something for people so that they can see it? It's a web application, so anybody can open it on their phone. I pretty much always have it on my phone to kind of check stuff in real time and see containers that people ask about and so on. It's definitely optimized for a desktop or a laptop where there's a lot of information on the screen, and if you're on a phone and trying to scroll left and right, you might not see all the information you need, but it does work.
Thanks, Jake. Another question is, who or what carrier's platform can you integrate with for air freight?
Air freight, we have a running list of like current air freight providers that we're integrated with. We'd also utilize the same way you think that we do like track the vessels as we track planes in real time. So really, any air freight will be trackable, so to speak, at some point in the near future. We're building that kind of database of air connections over time, and it's fully built out for I don't know what the exact number is, maybe 50 air carriers at this time and growing. But then we can also track the planes and everything in real time.
Great. And so I do have another question here. With the tracking on inbound containers on vessels, are you able to see the location of the container on the individual vessel?
Right now, our information would be aggregated at the vessel level. We do get, so like, if it's stacked on the third row and how high and so on within the vessel, there is a stow plan that comes from some of our data sources that we provide to customers as like, hey, this is the stow plan, and that's like the 6-digit alphanumeric that says this is where the container is on the vessel. We haven't done anything to like put that into 3D and show customers exactly where the container is on the vessel, but maybe that's a future plan.
Thank you, Jake. And is this coast to coast in the United States? Are there any ports, rails, or steamship lines you do not cover?
I mean, for our work with TCW, the entire regionality that TCW has, we cover, right? And so, Gary, I know if you speak to the regions that you guys cover, I know the entire East Coast and inland on the so Norfolk Southern and CSX and all those things are covered.
So we're partnered through the TCW portal, predominantly for the Southeast region that TCW covers. However, if you are interested in the total container lifecycle management product through Gnosis, then yes, it is covered for the entire country.
Next question is, what milestones are included in the breadcrumbs after the container is picked up?
I'll speak to that. So first, you'll have lat long data in the actual location. But then in the grid screen that Jake mentioned, you'll also have the location that box is showing in TCW's network. So let's say that box that we had on the screen, it's moving further west, yet it's dropped on our Atlanta yard, waiting the next truck to move it across or awaiting appointment. Then it'll show loaded TCW Atlanta, or it will show if it's moving across, if it's actually under dispatch, it'll show en route. But it'll also show the lat long data and the closest proximity city, town to that lat long data.
Thanks, Gary. And the next question we have is, how do we obtain the milestones so that we can perform KPI analysis?
Well, I think, from our perspective, and I know the TCW team is in the platform and using it operationally. Of course, there's traditional data transfer methods, like sending reports and doing those kind of things. And Gary, I don't know if you'd want to speak to any API capability or anything you guys have. The Gnosis system does kind of by default have a report builder where anybody on the TCW side, as a part of their work with their customers, can utilize the report builder to choose, I want a report to go out every day at 8 a.m. that has the container number, the latest drayage milestone, the port it's going to, the warehouse, all those kind of information, all those pieces of information, and it can be automatically sent to customers every day or every hour, right? It just depends on how that's configured to be set up.
All right, we have 3 questions left. This next one is, Does the platform have metrics for average transit times, etc.?
It does. I think and it's kind of specific. There's two parts of it. One is specific to a customer. And so for all of the containers that TCW has running through its system, TCW's internal operations dashboard has their transit times. You know, it's like, hey, all the containers we've tracked from Shanghai to Charleston have a vessel transit time of 41 days, and you can click into it and see where all those metrics come from. And then Gnosis separately, you know, as a whole, is always, you know, calculating through our entire book of business and all the containers we track, what those transits look like. So there's kind of the customer specific transit and analysis, and then like the overarching entire network transit and analysis.
When do you expect the export portion of the platform to be completed and running?
I'll speak to this one because part of this has to do with our agreement with Gnosis. After much polling with a lot of our larger exporters, the value of adding that to the portal just didn't seem to have an ROI for our exporters. The majority of our exporters, once we get the drayage moved back to the port, their responsibility ends. It's either being taken by the buyer at that point or their overseas division that they're transferring that inventory to. And they said, hey, once you get to the port, we're fine. Which the other reality is that moving beyond port becomes a data issue for us too, because our move as an intermodal drayage provider is terminated once we get to port. We bill that invoice within 24 hours, and immediately that record moves from current to history. So all of a sudden we start getting into some transmission issues and continuing to transmit that data or capture that data coming back from Gnosis to a record that is locked down in history. So talk to your sales manager if there's a specific need. The other thing that we can do is build some specific reporting around the ground transportation of that export that might fit the need there.
Thank you, Gary. And our last question is there different prices per container life cycle management?
Yeah.
For the level, yeah.
Yeah, and that's where, you know, when I showed that giant slide of all the different things that Gnosis does, you can think of, you know, Gnosis's pricing in terms of the less complex. So like starting with just the data is the cheapest, and then goes all the way up to the really complex enhancements that were at the bottom right of the screen. And then there's also the volume discount piece. So the more complex, the more expensive, and then the more volume, the less expensive. And so there's kind of those two different competing methodologies that kind of determine the price for CLM and everything associated with it.
All right, we do have one more question, Jake, and it's going to be related to you. What backup do you have to replace data in the event of hacking?
We have through I'll speak. We have our VP of Cybersecurity and Infrastructure, Brandon Toops, has done a whole lot of work in the compliance and cybersecurity space to make us SOC 2 compliant. So any software to sell in the B2B, the business to business world, has got to be SOC 2 compliant, and then also go above and beyond that to some different certifications. ISO 27001 is one that's pretty pertinent in Europe. All those are fancy terms and certifications and things to say that we have all different kinds of backups using different cloud systems. We use database providers that restore different database things, different database instances every hour. There's stuff that we do internally to kind of test those things to make sure that all of our backups and everything are working, and that we have kind of not put all of our eggs in one basket as far as the software and where the data is.
All right, we do have one last. And then the last question I'll speak to in our closing, but can the platform be used for container scheduling? Yes. We are providing two-way communication through the portal. that allows our customers to give us priority dates or priority boxes to mark them. So if you've got 20 boxes on a vessel and 4 of them are priority, you mark those just with a simple checkbox, and that communicates that back not only to our team through the portal, but that is also brought directly into our TMS. We are also going to have a column where you can give us a delivery date, so that you can tell us what date you want those containers. And then you're also able to report empty for our drop and hook questions. Our drop and hook clients, you're also able to report when that box is empty. And that'll be a key part too, first in communicating to us, hey, this box is empty, let's get it moving back. But also in the backside data where we're going to find the efficiencies, in what was average time on property, what was average time from pickup to termination. So we encourage use of the portal for that two-way communication. So that does conclude our session on tracking and visibility powered by Gnosis today. We hope you found this 45 minutes of valuable investment of your time. Jake, first, I want to thank you for joining us and sharing your expertise on this portion of container lifecycle management that we're partnered on. Also would like to say, if you see value in looking into partnering with TCW for your visibility or drayage needs, or are interested in learning more about Gnosis Container Lifecycle Management product, please contact your TCW sales manager, and they'll be happy to assist you by either getting you set up so where we can get your portal set up very soon, or connecting you with the Gnosis team to learn more about the total product. Also want to mention, love to have you join us on Wednesday, March the 12th, as we talk to Emily Phillips at eMission Advisory about sustainability and both the current and upcoming regulations and how it can assist each of our companies in improving our operational footprint. Again, Jake, thank you very much for joining and appreciate your time today. And thanks everyone who attended. Hope you have a great day.
Thanks so much, Gary. Had a great time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.